Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver and my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. Today, I'm really psyched to have a guy I've been trying to get on the show for a while now. My dear friend Ryan Pancoast, artist and illustrator for Magic the Gathering, and artist of some of my favorite art in the game. But really, I mean, it's hard to find an artist I don't like, and that's like I wouldn't talk to the ones I don't like their art of, because then that would be a weird conversation. But Pancoast is really, really good, and I like his art a lot, so it makes it a lot easier. Also, I love just seeing you at every con we run into. It's super fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shivam. Yeah, the cons are kind of like a double-edged sword because it's a great time to see me in person, but also it's at the point where I'm at my absolute busiest. So if you can find me in person, there's nothing you can do about it because I got a line of people to get.
Yeah. It's so much fun. It's like I come by and I see you and your wife, and then it's just like, hi, bafoosh, and we're gone.
That's kind of how those things go, unfortunately. So I'm really happy to be here and actually have a nice long conversation.
Have an actual human chat. Like,
Right.
yeah, no. So I'm really stoked because the fact that you have, like, your art came to my attention. Like, I mean, it's weird to say came to my attention. I've been buying Magic cards my whole life, but like I didn't start paying attention to your art until like the original like Kaladesh block era and like the original like the Commander Sahili that you did. And then I went back and I looked at like all of your art, and I'm like, damn, this dude's just really, really good. And like I just like your art a lot. So it's been really, really fun. When did you start drawing for Magic?
Yeah, I'll explain why you didn't start noticing me until that Sahili. It was like I started in, I want to say 2009. So my first set ever was M10, the core set. And so my first expansion was Zendikar. And my career kind of divided into a couple sections. So the first part of my career, I was kind of like finding my feet and figuring out, like, I was having some hits and having some misses, and Sahili was really the first time when I was given the chance to do something really cool and I didn't blow it. Because like I was considering around that time, around Kaladesh, or do we call the old set Kaladesh?
We still call the old one Kaladesh, yeah.
Okay. It was around that time when I was getting really frustrated because I didn't feel like I was getting the jobs from Wizards that I could really flourish with. Like it really, and fortunately I have some artist buddies. Steve Belladin talked with the art director and said, why isn't Ryan getting more people? And ever since then, I've been fortunate enough to get a lot of people, starting with really Planeswalker.
Because like, yeah, because I'm like going through your old stuff, and it looks like you had a lot of just landscapes and random like weird robots and plague monsters and things.
Yeah, I mean, my career basically is painting everything under the sun that Wizards can throw at me. Like I don't have a specific specialty, or I'm not given I feel like my specialty is probably portraits, but I don't get like 100% portraits. I get asked to paint all sorts of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And oftentimes it's not stuff that I'm confident with. I don't want to say bad at, but like I'm not confident with it.
I will say this though, your planes from M11 that you did, which is this beautiful field of wildflowers, is just gorgeous. It's like one of my favorite planes. It's just because it actually feels like an actual planes, and it's got, and the flowers you draw, the little daisies or whatever, just They remind me a lot of like kind of when I go hiking over here on the California coast, and you see like after a rain, all the flowers are open. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that
And
was my first ever magic illustration.
really,
Yeah, I still
draw a
have.
field of flowers.
Yeah, I mean, well, it wasn't even a request to draw flowers. The flowers were kind of my invention, or not invention. I didn't invent
Your
flowers.
innovation.
Yeah, yeah, my choice, we'll
Yeah,
say. But yeah, I mean that for my first piece, that is a piece that still stands up to me. I'm still very proud of that one, and I wish they would reprint it at some point.
yeah, dude, it's beautiful. It's legitimately just like it feels like a place that you would want to go and draw white mana out of. Like that's my like bar for a land is like, does this feel like a place that I would want to sit and meditate in and get power out of? And
Right.
it just really feels like a field of just. I mean, it's just it's cool, man. It's like so many planes. People don't. It feels like artists don't really know what to do with planes,
Well,
or
there's
art
only so,
directors don't. You know.
yeah, there's only so many ways you can draw like a flat horizon, you know. So kind of like mess with the horizon and stuff. Like there's only so many things you can do.
Yeah.
There's different planes you can travel to and explore. But really, that was like when an artist is asked to do something that they've been thinking a lot about for many years. Like
Mm,
my entire year before I started working on Magic, I was gearing my portfolio towards getting work with Magic. So
mm.
entire 2009, I was out of college. Fortunately, fortunately for my career, I was living home with my parents. All I had to do was paint, and that's what I did for the entire year, was develop a portfolio that would impress the art directors at Magic. Um, and so I've been thinking about like what's going to happen if I get a job with this, and what's going to happen if I get A or B. And so when I got the email from Jeremy Jarvis saying, "Hey, do you want to do a landscape for Magic?" I was like, "Yes, I do." And here's my entire creative out, last year.
Did you have like all five ready to go?
Well, I mean, I'm glad I got planes because even to this day, like I really like white green. Like if I had
Mm,
a color combo that really matched my aesthetic, that would be it. So I'm really happy
awesome.
planes is my first one.
Yeah, and so let's go back. So you went to art school. Why did you want to get into Magic, or did you play Magic before, or were you familiar with the game?
I was familiar with the game. I had never played, but I remember the feeling of being in fifth grade and seeing somebody's binder open up and seeing magic cards.
Mm,
And they were kind of weird and impressive and maybe even a little bit scary because I didn't really know what it was. Uh,
hmm
so I remember that feeling of seeing a magic card. And really, like, I went to school to be an illustrator, not
mm,
necessarily for magic. I just wanted to paint for a living, whether that was on books or magazines. So when I graduated, through a random connection with somebody at my high school, this company called Fifth Epoch Publishing was publishing their own RPG called Metal Magic and Lore, and they commissioned me to do almost their entire book.
mm.
So armor, creatures, scenes, all in black and white, not even in color. So I spent a year doing that, and they took me to Gen Con, where
Nice.
where I was like, where I got a real exposure to the current scene of fantasy art, and I was like, I think I can do this. Like I love fantasy art. I loved Frank Frazetta as a teenage
Mhm.
artist. I just felt like in my bones, like I could do this. Like I could work for Magic. So that's when I started doing that, developing my portfolio. I was like, I'm gonna get this. Like I feel it. Um,
Nice.
and it took a year of work, and I came back. They didn't like my portfolio the first year at Gen Con, but then I came back the next year and I saw John Shindahedi, who was the AD on Dungeons and Dragons, and he said, "Yeah,
Mm.
looks like you're ready." And I said, "Well, my
That's
goal is to work for Magic, so here we are."
that's awesome.
Yeah,
And
it's like when you kind of really focus, when you know it in your bones, it's really good to have that payoff.
yeah, like I mean, a lot of people work very hard for long times and don't get it. Like getting it after a year is that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate. And I want to say like it's all hard work because it's not, but my hard work put me in a position to get lucky.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Exactly that. Oh
uh,
man, because I've got your Scryfall open, so I'm just looking at like all the art you've done, and I realized that the actual first art of yours that I just fell in love with completely was Inventor's Apprentice from Kaladesh, which is I wrote like a long essay about in Tumblr at the time about how beautiful this posing is and how like absolutely perfect it is for like an Indian style setting and all the kind of like details and stuff you got. Man,
yeah.
that painting is still like I think that's still my favorite one you've ever done.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked really hard on that. And for those of you who don't know, I married into a big Indian family. And so Avishkar is really important to me as a person. And even if I wasn't getting like the primo cards for the first
Yeah.
Avinash set, I still wanted to put everything I had learned and seen into the art. And that was the goal.
Yeah, it's like they look like real people. Like the Inventor's Apprentice thing, the what I noticed immediately was that you got the light off of the skin color exactly right. And
Yeah.
I was like, this dude knows. He has seen an Indian person in his life.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean, yeah,
I don't know, it just I love that. It's like it looks so lifelike and like isn't that you drew your wife in that one, didn't you? Is that what it was?
that's correct. Yeah. I might as well introduce her. Her name is Shelly. And
She's awesome.
you'll see her at events. And she's, if you buy APs from me, she's the one that's fulfilling all the orders. So she's kind of my right hand person right now, and even in business. So yeah, she posed for that one. Um, because I feel like it's I like painting for magic, but I also feel that it's important. I feel like it's important work uh,
Hmm.
because I feel that as a white guy, we've had enough representation in fantasy art, and I want to paint people of different ethnicities and body types as much as I can. And when I do, I want to be faithful to the person that I'm trying to paint. So
Mm.
I will always do my best to hire an Indian model, a black model, an Asian model, anything they, in order to get the correct photo reference to do the
Mm.
things from. Because I want everything to feel real to the people looking at the piece.
Yeah.
And my audience, my best audience, is the people that I feel have been underrepresented in fantasy art in general.
Like I noticed that as well when there was a conspiracy card you did called Natural Unity, which had like these two black people on it, and it was just like, wow, dude, you have really nailed facial features and just like making like because one thing is you'll see a lot of fantasy art where it's you could tell they were drawing a white person and then just kind of coloring and making it look like a knot. But like
Absolutely.
you actually like when I come look at your artwork side by side, you can actually see that there's differences in ethnicity that represent. I mean, I realize that's like super basic to say, like, oh look, Mr. Painter, you can paint. But like it's hard and it's very easy to see like there are famous fancy artists and stuff who draw like blue elves and things, but they're just like folks from London or whatever. You know, it's like very like your elves or your dwarves or whatever still just look like white people who are shaped differently.
Yeah.
And so I respect that a lot that like you put the effort in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all about painting either, because the
Yeah.
best painters in the world can only do so much. Like, so there's only so much that my skill can actually do. So the work that I put in before I even start painting, so research, gathering photo reference, getting the correct models, as I mentioned, all that going into it is really like, and even like my money too. Like I'm
Yeah.
paying ahead of time. I'm already a couple hundred deep into every job I do because I
Right.
know it's important work for me, and I'm going to like the piece more at the end if I'm really accurate to what I'm trying to paint.
So can we talk about your process then? What is it like when you get a commission from Wizards? How do you go through the steps to do that?
Right. So Wizards operates on kind of like a wave system. So every 6 weeks, there's a new wave of commissions that come out. Sets usually are two waves. So you'll have wave A and wave B for, let's say, Bloomborough.
Hmm.
And so they'll often ask how many pieces you can take within that 6 week period, and I usually say two. So every 6 weeks, two jobs will come into my inbox. That'll usually be a paragraph description about what they want. A week and a half later, I'll send them sketches. They'll choose the sketches that they like or approve the sketches that I submitted. And then after that, it's on to the painting. But in between those steps, I'm thinking, I'm gathering reference, I'm getting prepared for the final stage of painting. So when I'm working on my sketches, I'm also trying to hire models, or
Mm.
I'm making a maquette, which is like a small sculpture that I can light and get good reference on. I'm doing color studies even before the
I
sketches are.
love your color studies, man. They're so cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a miniature abstract version.
Yeah,
Final,
it's like blurred out and then it snaps together for the final. It's like I love seeing color studies. I think they just look super sick.
and they're
Did you
necessary too for the
Yeah,
process.
did you have to like hire mice for your Bloomberg artwork?
No, that was actually fun. I had to sculpt a lot of little mice out of polymer clay, and like I created little. I actually collected.
Dioramas.
Yeah, dioramas, exactly. I collected leaves and sticks from outside and made their little costumes.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, so like they're miniatures. And right now, the sculpture for Whiskervale Forerunner is in
Mm.
my daughter's room because it's just so cute. It's like on a little
Yeah, it is
scroll.
adorable. I think
And
my favorite one is your Repel Calamity, which is the little mouse with the sword looking up the big wolf coming in, and I'm like, oh crap.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was supposed to be like the tone painting for the set. Zach Stella, who was the art director on that, handed it to me before the main Bloomborough jobs came out because he
Mm.
wanted like something to show the artist what to kind of aim for. And so I spent a lot of time on it, and probably too much time because I handed it in late, and Zach couldn't even use it for the
Oh
group
no.
he was using it for. That's unfortunate, but I'm still very proud of that
Oh, dude,
piece.
that painting rules though, man. It's like it feels like it could be the cover of a Redwall novel or like anything of that like kind of like little mice against big monsters thing. It really does capture the setting, and I think it's one of my favorite ones because it's so sick.
Yeah, Redwall was a like the cover to Martin the Warrior, that book when I was.
Yeah,
I
I'm
want to
reading
say,
it to my son right now at bedtime.
yeah, I want to say like I want to say 12, 10, somewhere around there. That image has really stuck with me my whole life. So when Bloomborough came out, I was like, all right, I got you. I know what aesthetic we're going for. Um,
Yeah, you do.
because I loved that cover. And that's one thing that growing up as an artist is super important, is seeing the things that really inspire you and thinking, okay, one day I'm going to do that.
Yeah, dude. Like it's funny because when they were like, "Oh yeah, we're doing Bloomberg," I'm like, "So there's gonna be a Redwall tie-in, right?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Well, it's popular in America and like England. People don't know what it is." I'm like, "This is literally the Redwall set you're ever gonna get. You can't." But I guess there's not like you. I mean, what are they gonna do? Reskin somebody to be Martin the Warrior or Madame or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
Like the tie-ins can't be super close to actual existing IPs. Like
Yeah.
crossovers are more exciting when they're kind of different, you know.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, like, that's sort of like uh, the animated prequel or whatever trailer for Bloomborough was
Yeah.
really exciting because they got the aesthetic even in the trailer.
Yeah.
You
Man,
know.
I love Bloomberg so much. It was one of my favorite sets, I think, in a very long time. Um, One of the other sets, I was looking through your art, and I didn't realize you did one of um, the most like the art that I've seen the most. I think it's Scott Larrabee's first design card was a thing called Martyr's Bond, and he has the original painting of it in his house. And you drew that, and with the two angels kind of staring at each other, the Zendikar angels, it looks so cool. And that
Yeah.
card is just so messed up.
Yeah, I can't control what the card does. But yeah, Martyr's Bond was an interesting thing. My wife, who was I think my wife at the time, maybe fiance, posed for that one as well. Fortunately, like you can't really tell because the eyes are
Yeah,
blocked
it
out.
doesn't.
And that was one of the earlier pieces. So he got that piece pretty easily. He just kind of had to contact me and quote a price. It's not like because now originals are very, very difficult to
Yeah.
come by.
Dude, I don't have any originals except for like the sketches that I get from you guys
Yeah.
uh, someday.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't bought the only I bought one original artwork from Magic in my entire career, and that's Avon. It's like a Mark Zug painting. It's two owl people next to each other, and it's super cool. The rest of the art that I have, I've traded for. So like back in the day, you could actually trade for artwork because Magic art was not worth that much.
Dude,
So
I sit and I talk to some of my friends like Tubby Elliott or whatever. They're like, yeah, I've got, rooms in my house full, like wall to wall of magic art because it was like dirt cheap, traded for a box of cards. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, what are you talking about? And now, if you see a piece of art, like there've been a few pieces of art I've been trying to bid on or whatever, and within minutes it's like, okay, well, so I have to trade my car for this, is what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, it's good for us because now we actually like the
You can
one.
actually make some money off it, which is
Well,
nice.
I'm actually making a living, which is
Right.
something I never really thought I was going to be able to do. Is support a family on an illustrator's income.
It's
Uh,
very hard to do.
it's very hard to do, and I'm very lucky, and I'm very fortunate that people value that art so highly because it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my family. Because I
Yeah.
remember, like in 2012, I went to Spectrum Art Live and was next to Chris Ron, and he had a box of paintings that would never sell, and it was a box they were marked as $500. And I said, "We don't want to trade." He was like, "Yeah, anything from that box. I can't move those things." I got one of his first paintings from Shards of Alara, and it's
Oh
just
my
beautiful.
god.
And I'm never getting rid of that thing. But
Yeah, no. What? No.
yeah,
That's insane.
yeah,
It's so weird to think about like now compared to like what it like I feel stupid not having been more aware when I was younger how easily this stuff. But I mean, like, what? I can't make myself care about things then that you know, mm,
right,
it's hard to not feel stupid sometimes. But then I'm like, I also gave away all my cards a dozen times,
yeah.
so like, it's on me at this point.
Yeah, you can't control the past for sure. You can kind of go along for the ride, and there's other things. There's always sketches. Sketches are
Yeah,
cool.
that's why
Yeah,
I like collecting like sketches of like. That's why I got my tokens collection or my like AP artwork because that's easy way to get real art. Like just like buy a thing and say, "Can you draw a thing on the back for me?" And then at home, I've got now an original piece, and it's super cool. Like I've got some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles you've done. I've got so many tokens you've drawn for me at this point. It's
yeah.
so
I
cool.
have a feeling that a lot of people come up and buy them for you as gifts.
That has happened too. There's been a bunch of my friends have like bought me soldiers and other things that you have drawn for me, and I think that's sweet as hell, and also just rad, and I love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's such a joy to be able to do a job that brings other people joy. I was talking about how like it's important for me on an emotional level, but that's also important. Is that like the stuff that I do, people are happy about, and that
yeah.
is super cool.
How cool is it to go to like shows and see people just going like, "Oh my god, this is my favorite piece of art."
It is really nice. I'll just put it that it's one of the best things. When Shelly started coming to conventions with me, she was surprised at how tiring they are. Uh, but she mentioned that like everybody here is so happy to be here, and everybody's just so happy to talk with you. And I was like, yeah, that is a pretty cool thing to experience.
Yeah, right? Like it turns out that it's really nice to be in a place where everybody is stoked to see you and you're the best person they've ever seen, right? Like
Yeah,
it's great for the ego.
there's nothing bad about that situation. The only thing bad is that I feel like I want to spend quality time with each person, but I also don't want everybody waiting in line for hours. Like
Mhm.
I feel like that is I want to try to move through the line as quickly as possible and give everybody that waited in line enough time one-on-one time with me, as much time as they would like.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, that's a tall order, man.
it's a balancing act. It really is. Like, I try to be friendly at events, and I try to make sure I'm looking everybody in the eye and um, giving them attention when they need it. And but it's a trick.
Yeah, so God, there's so many art to yours that are so good. I want to talk about like Mox Tantalite. I remember you posted the making of video, and I watched that whole thing like multiple times. It is such a stunningly beautiful artwork for such a unplayable card.
Well, like when you get a commission email and in the title is Mox,
Yeah,
you know you have to kind of
go
really,
all out.
yeah, you have to go all out. But fortunately, that Mox plays to my strengths, so I'm really good if at looking at something and painting that exact thing on a canvas. Like,
Mm,
the imagination part of imaginative realism or fantasy art is the hard part for me. Being able to faithfully reproduce something that I see in paint, that's something that I'm good at and I'm fast at.
can you talk about that painting a little bit? Like, did they did they tell you what to draw? Like, because tantalite is not exactly a material that we talk about on a daily basis, right? Like,
Yeah. It was it
so
was it was called something else. It wasn't called Tantalite in my commission
mm,
email. It was something like Magnetite or something. It was something magnetic or slightly magnetic.
mm,
So what I did, the first thing I did was I went online and I tried to find a magnetite sphere that I could buy.
mm,
And fortunately, there are gem shops and stuff. So
yeah,
and I think I got this one on Etsy. And so, like, I picked it up. It came in the mail. It was like this cute little orb of magnetite. And then I built out of Sculpey, I built a base, the base that you see on the card. I
yeah.
built out of polymer clay and spray painted it gold.
That's so
And
pretty.
then I put the little gem on top of the pedestal, lit it from above with like a cell phone camera or something, and took a picture. And the reference photo that I got is relatively close to the way the painting ended up. Like, the orb is obviously not floating, and the
That's
back
so
I
cool.
imagined, but everything else was pretty much. I just had to look at the reference photo.
Yeah, you say you're like, oh, I'm not good at the imaginative part. You still had to make a thing out of Sculpty and paint it. Like that's imaginative, man. That didn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's creativity. Yeah, for sure. But when I say imagination, I mean, like, if you ask me to paint a dragon right
Mm,
off the top of my head, like, I'm not the best at that. I can do it, but
mm,
I'm not Steve Prescott. Like, I'm not going to
right.
create like this huge, like this really interesting design for the dragon that you're like, oh, that could be like in any movie you've ever
Mm,
seen. Like, I'm not that artist. I have to work really hard at creating something that doesn't exist.
mm,
But everything
yeah.
else, but the realism part is the part that I really flows for me, because that's how I learned. I learned by looking at a magazine and drawing the picture from the magazine, like trying to
Okay.
copy exactly.
Can we talk about like the best thing you ever did, the Discover the Impossible painting?
Sure.
Like it's so sick. It's like, and I'm still just kicking myself that I never got one of the cool big aluminum versions that you had put out. But like this painting for it's like number one on my list of hardest art on cards that do not deserve this kind of artwork. It's like just the top down view, the cyberpunk kind of ocean feel of the manta rays. Just oh my god, this painting tells a story that's just insane, and I
Yeah.
absolutely love it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was another example, like the Repel Calamity. It was another example of Zach giving me a job that said, we want you to, like, kind of make the feel of this new Kamigawa.
Mm,
And the writers for for the art direction really gave me a pretty solid visual cue as to what to do. Like, they wanted to see. They actually mentioned like a. They mentioned either a top-down view or some sort of different kind of composition. So I came up with an idea basically in my head, sketched it out, and I was like, I this is the one. This is the direction I want it to go. Like, it was pretty immediate,
yeah.
because like, sometimes you can just feel it. And I was really happy the way that piece came out. I'm happy people had such a good reaction to it.
Dude, it's so good.
And
It's so good.
it's the only piece of artwork. Well, it's the piece of artwork that I got my first big award in. I got a Chesley Award uh,
That
for
deserved.
that piece, and so that award is still on my mantle because I'm really proud of the way that turned out, and I'm happy that I finally got an award on my.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, if I can call
Did you
myself an award-winning illustrator now.
do you have the original for this still, or did you end up selling it to somebody?
No, that belongs to a private art collector someplace in the world.
Well, good for them, and I hope they enjoy it because it rules. Um, and like, obviously, you got to do Captain America, which must have been awesome.
Yeah, again, like another oh my goodness moment when you open your email.
Hey, Ryan, we would like you to draw the Captain America for the brand new Marvel. And you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of one of those moments where, um, yeah, just everything kind of worked out where you feel really lucky to be working for this client and you feel really lucky to get that specific job. And I knew that I had to do my best possible work. Um, and that's the way it works out, Shivam. It's like you can try to do your best piece every single time,
Mm,
but the reality is you're not going to get your best piece every single time, no matter what you do.
hmm
So the goal is if you get a really, really interesting or important assignment, is to try to hit like the high end of your average piece.
mm.
Like it's not going to be your best piece, but you want to get close to like as close to great as you possibly can. And Marvel was a big part of my artistic journey growing up as a teen, and yeah, just one of those dream assignments.
Yeah, and Captain America is a marquee character, right? So like that must have just been like I've got to do the best I can on
Yeah,
like and I know that cuz I've talked to a lot of artists and I know you guys will sit there and kind of like you can tell if a card is going to be like the marquee face card of a set or it's going to be draft common and you want to do your best on all of them but real talk, we know that like an enchantment that makes you get an extra mana off your land is not going to be as awesome as Captain America.
yeah.
So,
I mean,
like, do you
and
guys have that kind of calculus, or how do you like balance this sort of thing out?
yeah, there is a calculus involved. The better pieces you get a better fee for at the front end.
Ah,
However, that doesn't necessarily translate to how much you can possibly earn on the original art afterwards, because
mm,
sometimes those commons come in and it's like a really cool idea, or like Discover the Impossible, like a really
yeah,
cool idea or something that can be turned into a really beautiful painting. And so, like, oftentimes that gives you the freedom to do something that you hadn't done before, or that's something that you're really proud of. So you
yeah.
always need to open that possibility that it's going to be a really good piece, regardless of what the card actually does.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, some of your random like just land enchantment comments are some of my favorite artworks. Gift of Paradise is absolutely beautiful, and like obviously one of my favorite cards is I got you to sign the foil version of Unbridled Growth or whatever for my mark for my favorite deck. It's just that card is so beautiful. I love the way it looks,
Thank you.
and I mean, like I'm not going to sit there and say like all your like sometimes people it's like, man, you're too nice to these guys. I'm like, what am I going to tell you that your art sucks to your face? Like, come on.
All right. Well,
Although your smallpox not my favorite.
yeah, I'll do it for you, Shivam. I'm a human being, and I throughout my and I've been working at this for 15, almost yeah, 15 years or so. Like there are some stinkers that I've and I'm not going to deny that it's part of the journey, and each piece has like a
Are there
different.
any that you wish you could take back and redo like
Oh,
desperately badly?
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
People come up to you and like, hey, can you sign this? And you're like, oh,
Yeah, I'm not going to say all of them that I
no,
don't
just one.
because people own the pieces and
Sure.
love the pieces. But there's one piece that I gifted my high school friend, and it's Treasure Mage from Feared and Besieged, and
Yeah.
I desperately want to redo that one. Um, like it's not in a vacuum, it's not a terrible painting. In the
it,
context of Mirrodin Besieged and the other artwork that's around it,
it just
it's
didn't
not that.
fit.
Yeah, it's not that good.
No.
Um, and, but it was because I was at that time I was working. I graduated from school and I was working part time as a track coach at my old high school, and
Hmm.
taken 3 jobs that way, which is way too much for me. And so I just thought like I could muscle through that amount of work, and it turns out that I can't. I have to take my time on each piece and take fewer jobs and deal with each piece more seriously because I can't just sit down and paint something that's going to stand the test.
Sometimes I look at like sets and I see artists have like 6 or 7 pieces in there. I'm like, are you a machine? How did you like? You have to paint all these and you have to go through the process and redo them, and I don't understand how you can just churn these things out. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, digital art is not easier, but it's certainly faster. And
Mm,
so it's rare that like a traditional artist, somebody working in a traditional media, is going to do 6 pieces in a set, unless they're like a specialized style where it's like ink drawings or really quick
mm,
watercolor stuff, like Siddharth's dinosaurs
yes.
from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Um, Produced a ton, but he'll tell you that it's less work than like a full blown oil painting, because it's not supposed to be. Um,
Yeah.
Digital
I got
artists
to
can
meet
do,
him in Amsterdam. That was very cool.
yeah, he's a good guy. But yeah, digital artists can physically do more work because it is faster, even though it's not easier.
Okay, so I have a question for you that I've been meaning to ask for a long time. You did Safi Eric's daughter and her brother. Um, what the hell's his name? Yeah, Hans Eriksson.
Yeah,
Did you mean to do that as kind of like a diptych pair, like kind of showing the backs of each other on that
yeah,
painting?
yes, I did. The
'Cause I thought that was so sick. I love the way that they kind of just match up.
Yeah, the it was an interesting story because I did Safi first,
Yeah,
and
for like Time Spiral or something.
yeah, and
Time Spiral
that
remastered. Yeah.
it's a weird. I forget now. I forget what I did first. No, I did. Uh,
You
I
must have
did.
done Hans first because Time Spiral came after that.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing: is that like I did one of those pieces, and then it got slushed. It got taken out of the
Oh.
set that it was supposed to be in, so it stayed in limbo for an entire year before it came
Oh
out.
no.
So the one I did before came out after the other one. Uh,
Oh.
so I
Okay,
did
so then
I did do it with the intention. I think I did Safi first. Yeah, I did
mm,
Safi first because I really wanted to put Hans in there someplace, so he's off in the background running away. Because I knew enough about magic lore to say, hey, this is going to be a kind of a cool thing. Uh,
yeah.
and then so Safi got slushed, which means put on a pile of unused art. Maybe someday will be released. And then they gave me Hans, and I was like, well, okay, here's redemption. I'm going to put Safi so that Safi is on a card someplace. Hans was really
I just love that because like we got Hans Eriksson and Safi's in the background with their sword and everything. And you see the jolly dude just
yeah.
smelling the flowers. I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted Hans to be.
And the model is my cousin's husband, and everybody thinks I painted some what I forget his name, saffron olive or what?
Yes.
Yeah,
Saffron
everybody.
Olive, the famous
Yeah,
magic artist. It
yeah.
looks exactly like that.
Right. Yeah. Everybody thinks I painted him, but I didn't. It's my cousin's husband. And when he found out that I was working for Magic, he was like, if you ever need a model that's kind of like a bigger guy with a beard. And then that job came in literally like 2 weeks later. Oh my goodness. It's
It
perfect.
turns out.
Yeah. So he took photos of himself. I didn't tell him what it was for because I can't, but
Yeah.
he took photos of himself in the pose that I asked him to do, and he sent it to me. So that was a fun thing to put someone of your family on a card.
Yeah, that rules, man. And like it's such a beautiful paint. It's so fun and lively. Okay, I actually have a question though about Safi. When you're redrawing a card, when you have a card that exists and is like already like a very famous and well-known card, and they ask you to do a new take on it, how do you do that? What's your process for like do you look at the original or do you just try to kind of develop what a new version of Safi would look like.
Yeah, I do look at the original when that happens. And oftentimes, the artist that had done it before is not necessarily your aesthetic or the aesthetic that the game is going for currently.
Mm,
So, you take a card from early 2000s, late 90s, it's going to have that late 90s fantasy art vibe.
hmm
And my job as a modern illustrator is to bring it into 2024 or whatever.
Yeah,
So Chris Muller, who did the original Safi, she's more like voluptuous, kind of on the original card.
yeah,
And like I kind of wanted to pare it down to be more utilitarian, her costume, and more a little more functional to the cold weather that she's supposed to be in. So you're taking like the aspects, like the essence of the original art, and you're just kind of like updating it for
yeah.
a
Because
new.
she's still got the same leggings and cape.
Yeah,
Her braid is still there. It's recognizably Safi, but I think the difference is that in the original one, she is running away, and yours she is like confronting dead on. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh, that's sick. I like that a lot. Like,
Yeah, that idea came from the writers who write the art descriptions for the
yeah,
artist. So that was their idea, and I knew what they were going for because I could see the original and say, okay, I get it. We're kind of switching the script here.
yeah,
Um, and Safi's face, you can't see it on the card, but I like the expression in that one because I put like a little tear in her eyeball, like so
yeah.
she
You can't really see it on the card.
can't see it, but in the original piece, you can see it, and it's just like I'm trying to, in like she knows she's doomed, but you
Yeah,
got
she's about to get lurgoyfed, and it's gonna be
yeah.
bad.
And I do want to paint the Lurgoyf at some point,
To
Zach.
get the triptych, man, that would be so sick.
I
Oh,
really do the Lurgoyf in the like the snow with the sunlight, the sunset light. Like,
it. I was
come on,
talking to
Art
my
Director.
friend. Yeah, I was talking to my friend Wheeler about this the other day. How like the Lurgoyf is like all of the Lurgoyfs in Magic are just like we don't know what this thing is. It's just long neck and teeth. That's all we got. Good luck. It's
Yeah,
so. It's definitely a magic. It definitely feels like a monster that was like, here is a monster. You figure out what to do with it. Happy birthday.
exactly. So, and a lot of stuff from the late '90s is like that, where they had more freedom. So there was just kind of like, I guess this looks cool. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, and like a lot of the Urza's, like the chess pieces that the Urza characters have, it's
Yeah,
very late '90s, big shoulder pads, kind of
yeah.
bulky indie stuff.
Oh yeah, you did the full fusion Urza, didn't you?
Yeah, and so when the new Brothers War came out, we were looking at it from 2020 eyes and saying, okay, well, we can't do like the full like Hearthstone kind of like big shoulder pads that was in the late '90s. We kind of have to pare it down, make it more streamlined and more appropriate for a modern setting.
Yeah. And it looks really sick though. It's like that artwork is so cool. Um I would feel amiss if I didn't bring up Obeka Splitter of Seconds, which is like the card that engendered the most feelings among my following, let's say. A lot of my friends were like, "It's me, I'm Seconds."
Yeah.
Lesbians love that art, let me tell you,
Oh,
dude.
really? Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yeah. I can't control what the card does. So I guess that's not my fault.
Yeah, the card is messed up, dude. But the art, man, like I love the shattered glass in the front where she's just like, "Yeah, I'm just here to break your face."
Yeah. Yeah, that I'm trying to live up to Jesper Eising's first version of
Oh,
Obek.
his version was so good.
Yeah, yeah. I
Like,
mean, it's hard to reproduce magic, you know. If some
yeah,
guy if an artist got it right the first time, it's hard to do it a second time, but I gave it my best shot.
yeah, it's so cool though. It's like fantastic looking piece. I think though, like one of the things that I didn't realize until way later was that you had drawn the remake of the Zern orb twice, and you did two different versions of it. Why did they ask you to update it?
Because Cynthia Shepard, who was the art director on that, saw an interview or heard an interview with me saying that I'm not don't really like the original Zurin orb that I
What?
did,
It's
and
so
was like,
good.
I'm glad you liked it, but it was one of those, again, one of those pieces that I thought I could muscle through, and I
Mm.
was like, I could do that piece over, and it would look so different, and not necessarily better. I don't want to say
I mean, I
better.
do like I like that it's in a grove of trees now because that
Yeah,
fits my forest deck a lot better.
yeah,
Uh, I don't know. It's because Zern Orb is like one of my cards from childhood, and I had the Ice Age one forever, and then I finally got the from the Vault version, and I was like, I was always torn. I'm like, do I use my original or do I use the really sick one?
yeah.
And then they reprinted it MH2, and I'm like, okay, well now I'm stuck, man. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, each art tells a story, and like the original Zuran Or was very early in my Magic career.
Yeah.
Uh, I did it along in the same wave that I painted Mind Control for that set. I think it was M11, maybe.
Mm,
Um, but
yes.
like each piece, it's not necessarily each piece is my favorite or I like each piece, but each piece reminds me of where I was at the time that I painted it. There's
Mm.
very few paintings that I have no recollection of painting because each
Well,
one has
yeah.
a story.
Mhm.
Each one has a story.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking you for all the stories, man. It's like I'm trying to go through here. Like I love the Elish Norn and the Shieldred you did for Marching Machines because like the Elish Norn feels very Norn, very like super boss. Did you have to also draw the and yeah, you also drew the saga on the backside of those too, didn't you?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I know that you did a saga in Kaldheim, right? Like
Yes.
Harold something.
Yeah. Harold something that unites the elves.
Yeah, what was that like? Because like I know a lot of the artists went and took the saga ideas in very different ways. Like I
Yeah.
remember I seeing somebody carve one out of wood, and I was like, that is
Yeah.
unbelievably cool.
Victor Adame and Adam Paquette both carved theirs out of wood. And we were all kind of like riding high on the original artwork. Original art market was kind of exploding at that point, so we felt
Mm,
the security to kind of take risks with our art. And the the those enchantments are
mm.
really good opportunities to do something different, and that's what we did. I didn't make a whole shield. I built a fake shield out of Sculpey and spray painted it gold and leaned it up against a tree outside, and I bought some like fake leaves from the craft store and spray painted them purple and draped them all over the shield.
What?
um, and that was
Yeah.
the first piece, like, that was like a COVID piece. So that was when COVID first happened. And
Mm.
after we got those assignments, we weren't sure what the future of magic or the future of magic art was going to look like. So it was a very scary time to be
Yeah.
painting.
It's
Uh,
hard to like it's hard to think of how do you have a card game that depended upon people showing up and hanging out in close spaces in COVID time?
yeah, and we didn't know, like, because the art market is dependent on, let's be honest, some very wealthy people, and
Yes.
I didn't know what their investments were going to look like, and whether like that's going to trickle down to what we were dealing with. Fortunately, it meant for us that people didn't spend a lot of money on travel or together, so they kind of like stockpiled art. So it ended up being a net good financially, but emotionally, it was a very dark time.
Yeah, well,
For you guys, for players and people in general, and artists specifically, because stuck there painting Harold Unites the Elves and not really sure what the future of my life was going to look like.
yeah, no, seriously. I mean, that's the thing is like when you think back to that time, a lot of people who had disposable incomes and nothing else to do with it were suddenly rebuying all the reserve list cards, buying original artwork. That's when like the market became just untenable for folks like me who were like, "Oh, I would love to own a thing." And it's like, "Oh, that thing costs like $1,200 now, where it cost
Yeah,
200 last time or whatever." And it's like, that's a challenge. But I
yeah,
mean, you know what? Like and ultimately, I sit there and think, I'm like, my artist friends got to eat, and that's good. I like
yeah,
that. I want you guys
yeah,
to survive because I want more art.
yeah. The 2022, when the COVID stuff started, like, yeah,
Ebbing.
2021, yeah, around 2021 was like the peak of the Magic market, and it's quieted down a little bit since then. Pieces are slightly more attainable.
Mm,
But yeah, that was we stockpiled. We saved a lot during that time, and so we were very fortunate to kind of have that period of time where we were able to save and invest in the future, and because that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for my kid.
right? Like I mean, it's your job, man. You got to paint paintings, and
It's my
somebody's
job.
got to buy them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. No.
mean,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Nobody should be feeling sorry for me, but like I do work hard, and I do appreciate everybody that comes up to me at a con, um, because it's just like you're the reason. If I'm talking to the audience, you're the reason that I can do what I do. I'm extremely lucky to be working for a game that is so vibrant and so full, and for such a long time. It's like a dream.
Yeah.
It really
Isn't it
is.
cool?
It's
It's
so
like
cool.
the coolest thing. It's like that's why I love going to these shows and just hanging out with people and be like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Look at this. There's like 10 million people here and we all like the same thing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I don't know. It's sick. I think it's such a blast. Uh, but I wanted to talk to you about Glint Sleeve Artisan before we tagged out because that card, I love this dwarf with the wrenches kind of. You can hear the sound of him like cranking that nut or whatever on his like gauntlet. But dude, the guy's got god tier mustache, and it's like one of my that picture makes me smile every time. And it
Yeah.
was one of my favorite cards to draft in that era. So it was super
He's
cool.
a interesting character. He's fun to look at, and that the design that they had for the dwarven kind of filigree metal stuff,
Yeah.
very very specific. So I didn't quite get it right on the first go around on the sketch, and so Don Murin sent me an example of like, okay, well, dwarven filigree is not exactly like you have it. So there's a lot of hard angles in that gauntlet that he has.
Mm.
And that was another piece where like I knew it wasn't going to be like a great card. It was going to be an okay card maybe. But I wanted to do something that I was really proud of. And so yeah, I worked really hard. I
I
wore
mean, draft commons deserve love too, right? Like we're gonna be looking at these. Like I think that's one of the things. Like you're gonna be looking at the commons in a set. If you're a limited player like me and you can draft them a lot, you're gonna be looking at a ton of these for a long time. So when they're nice to look at, it's cool. It
yeah.
feels good.
Yeah, and I don't put any less work into those cards as we mentioned. Like
Yeah.
I remember posing in that I posed for that one and I changed my anatomy significantly to pose. And his face was in shadow, so I didn't feel like I needed to hire somebody to do that one.
hmm
Especially since he was a dwarf and he had facial features, I could hide a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I got my wedding outfit, my Indian wedding outfit on in that position. So yeah, that was a fun one. That was very
That's
fun.
so sick. Oh man. Um, what is your favorite thing you've gotten to draw?
Favorite ever? Oh boy. Probably the one I'm most proud of is Ranger Captain of Eos.
Mm,
The same set that Mox Tanalite was released in. Um, and my other favorite one is probably Nikya of the Old Ways.
yes, that's a sick
Centaur.
painting.
Yeah, there's very few times where I look at one of my paintings and say, I wouldn't change anything in that painting. And those two, that's the feeling I get from those. Is like, I don't know where I pulled that from, but I wouldn't change anything.
Dude, the armor detail in the Ranger Captain is so good. The little medallions hanging off the shawl or whatever. And I love the lion he's riding. It's so cool.
Yeah, I always
Um,
wanted to paint one of those things, and I came in after Shards of Alara, so I never got the chance to.
and Nikia is also just a really cool looking, just centaur lady thing. I don't know. I think it's super sick. Um, I'm just like Fathom Mage is so good, and Ishin is super cool. I love the way you drew Ishin. Uh,
Yeah.
God,
You
man,
mentioned
you draw real good things.
Thank you. Yeah, you mentioned the details on Ranger Captain of Eos, and
Yes.
yeah, it is a lot of detail, but I'm not an artist who has like a size 00 brush and paints all the details like super completely. If you look at the original, it is sometimes just two strokes of paint. And I was like, from a distance, it's going to look like detail. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm pretty much going for, is that like a lot of my detail is implied in the original. It's implied by texture, it's implied by brushstroke. I'm not one of those artists who feel the need to
Like
draw
really go in there.
yeah, I want people to look at it to feel like it's alive. I don't want to kill the piece with detail.
Yes. And I think the last one I want to ask you about is Army of the Damned, which is just one of the funnest cards ever. All the zombies just kind of crawling in from everywhere. That
Yeah.
must have been fun to draw.
It was not my cup of tea, if I'm being honest. Like the horror stuff, not my thing. Like
Yeah, no,
going from Bloomborough to Duskmorn was kind of a tragedy for me. But
I did not. I made my feelings known about that. Not a fan. Not a fan.
yeah, I mean the set Duskmorn, I will say, is very beautiful in its own way.
No,
However, it's just not
I'm
my
not even gonna say that.
it's just not my personal thing. But Army of the Damned was the same thing, where Jeremy Jarvis, we had done 3 sets of Innistrad at that point. I had drawn close to like 20 zombies breaking into or out of something. And I told Jeremy Jarvis, I was like, please, can I do something else besides a zombie breaking in or out of something? That can get tiring after a year of doing that. It's like figuring out a new way that a zombie can break through the door. But
That is funny as hell, man.
it's a fun one, and it's it's a long lasting card. I keep seeing it pop up.
Yeah, dude, it's been in my. It was the cornerstone of my zombies deck when I first built it, and it's never leaving. It's like I love that card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see when things don't have new art. They just keep reprinting it, and some there's cards that I'm surprised by, like Mirror Token. I'm surprised the Mirror Token hasn't been reprinted with different art, but that just keeps
like
reprinted.
I mean, you drew a mirror. It looks like a mirror. What do you want? That's like okay. The Mirror Token though, it does look a lot like a Mauser from Team Ninja Turtles. Not gonna lie.
That is true. Yeah, I didn't. That wasn't in my head at the time. But
man, that means that you need to draw like a mirror with Baxter Stockman in the background. That would be amazing.
That's a good idea.
Because I know you do a lot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff. Like,
but not everybody was happy with the way the Mirror Token turned out. It was my first time I ever got a piece of hate mail from
for a token.
Yeah, because they weren't. It wasn't a Kev Walker mirror. It wasn't the right way they originally drew it.
Oh, and get off.
And my intention was to make it less of a robot and more of like a metal living thing. But not everybody liked that. And I will say, the Magic fans have improved significantly in the last 15 years. They're a much more friendly group of people than they were 15 years ago.
I'll take your word for it. How was your trip to India, man?
My trip to India was good. It was very eye-opening. And
have you been before, or was this?
This was my first time.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh man, that must have been very challenging.
There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't really prepared for. Although I did, like, it was a dream vacation. It was something that I've wanted to do ever since I got married.
I loved all the little miniatures you kept posting on Twitter.
Yeah, we saw so much like cool stuff, but we were with the kids, so we kind of got like a Disney World version of India,
Yeah.
But yeah, the air pollution was something to get used to.
It is. Turns out all those masks we've been hanging on to from COVID, great in India because you can't breathe because it is gross.
It is wild. It was definitely wild.
It has gotten so much worse than it used to be, and it's like unbelievable. Really? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and all the entire time I was just thinking of Avishkar and just thinking like, what can I take from this that is going to be inspiring in the future?
The next time they come back, right? Like
first time I kind of saw in person what you were talking about in that article.
Right.
I was like, all right, I kind of see where Shivam's coming from. It's like, so in the future, my art, at least, if I get to do Avishkar,
I hope they go back without race cars in it next time.
Me too. Me too.
That would be
But
real cool.
yeah, if I get to do
But
it, I'm going to take all that stuff with me.
yeah, I mean, like, because when you see it in situ, inside like the environment, the context it comes from, and you're like, oh, look at all these curves all over the place. They look naturally flowing with all this, and then the big boxy Hindu temples are all next to it, and it all looks very natural somehow, even though they're very clashing
Yeah.
generations of different art and architecture styles next to each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like, I mean, you see the Taj Mahal, and it's like, holy crap, that thing is insane.
Yeah.
It's like legitimately insane.
It's insane. And unfortunately, like we were supposed to see it at sunrise, and just the air pollution was too much. You wouldn't have been able to
Yeah.
even see it. But the entire time I was always asking our tour guides, like, is this like Mughal architecture or is this Hindu? And they were like, there's like Hindu architecture
Mm.
here and Mughal here. And so I was trying to get like, as much education as I could,
Oh yeah,
like while I was there.
that's so sick. Anyways, man, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a delight, and I'm glad we finally got it to work.
Me too.
Yeah. So, if folks wanted to find you or anything like that, or if you have anything to plug, where would they go?
You can find me on Blue Sky at our Pancoast, and you'll see me in Chicago if you go to Chicago. And you can always pop me an email. I don't really respond to a lot of stuff just because I'm a human and I can't. I'm hanging on by my fingernails.
Yeah, don't give me your email address. I think your Blue Sky is plenty.
Yeah, so if you just tag me in Blue Sky, I'll see it. I may not respond because I'm not great on socials, but I'll see it and I'll appreciate comments. Yeah.
And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gears on X or Shivam Bhatt on Blue Sky. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold or at YouTube every Tuesday. Thanks to my editor, Dan. You can also hear me on Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic or the Chronicles of Dragonlance podcast because I love the sound of my own voice. But remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.